You spend days building a beautiful piece of furniture. You carefully measure the boards, make the cuts, assemble everything, sand it smooth, and finally apply the finish. Then, a few weeks or months later, you notice a crack. So what actually caused it? Was the wood defective? Was the glue bad? Or did the design simply not account for how real wood behaves? The most common reason wood projects crack is wood movement. Wood is hygroscopic, which means it naturally gains and loses moisture as the surrounding humidity changes. When wood gains moisture, it generally expands. When it loses moisture, it generally shrinks. And most of that movement happens across the grain, not along the length of the board. That's why a solid wood tabletop can change noticeably in width throughout the year. The problem happens when you build the project in a way that prevents that movement. For example, imagine attaching a solid wood tabletop firmly to a rigid frame with screws that don't allow the top to move. As the tabletop tries to expand or contract, the fasteners resist that movement. The wood has nowhere to go, so stress builds up. Eventually, the wood may crack, split, warp, or break a joint. Another major cause is using lumber that hasn't reached an appropriate moisture content for its environment. Wood doesn't stop moving just because it has been cut into boards. If the lumber is still too wet and you build the project immediately, it can continue losing moisture after construction. As it dries, it can shrink and change shape. That movement can create gaps, cracks, warped panels, and stressed joints. This is why moisture content matters so much in furniture making. The ideal moisture content depends on your local climate and where the finished piece will be used. A piece built for a dry indoor environment shouldn't be treated exactly the same as one intended for a humid outdoor environment. Humidity changes can also cause problems even when the lumber was properly dried. A table built during a humid season may later experience much drier conditions. The wood loses moisture and shrinks. If the construction doesn't allow for that movement, cracks can appear. Another problem is choosing unstable boards. Some lumber contains internal stresses, large knots, irregular grain, or other defects that can make it more likely to move or split. That doesn't mean every board with a knot is unusable. It simply means you need to understand the material you're working with and choose boards appropriate for the project. Grain direction also matters. Wood doesn't move equally in every direction, so understanding how the grain runs helps you predict how a board or panel is likely to behave. This becomes especially important when joining solid wood to other components. One of the biggest mistakes beginners make is treating solid wood like plywood. Plywood is engineered with layers that greatly reduce dimensional movement. Solid wood is different. A solid wood panel needs room to move. That's why traditional furniture construction often uses methods that secure a panel while still allowing it to expand and contract. Tabletop fasteners, figure 8 fasteners, Z-clips, elongated screw holes, and properly designed joinery can all be used depending on the construction. The important thing is that the attachment method should allow the wood to move where it needs to move. Another common mistake is over-tightening fasteners. A screw isn't automatically a problem. The problem is using the screw in a way that locks a moving piece of solid wood completely in place. The correct attachment method depends on the direction and amount of expected movement. Poor joinery can create similar problems. A joint may be extremely strong, but if it prevents necessary wood movement, that strength can actually become part of the problem. Good woodworking isn't just about making strong joints. It's about making joints that work with the material. Glue can also be misunderstood. A properly prepared glue joint can be extremely strong, but glue can't stop the wood itself from moving. If you glue up a large panel correctly, the individual boards can still expand and contract. The goal isn't to prevent movement. The goal is to control it and design around it. And finally, don't rush the project. Before building important furniture, understand the moisture condition of your lumber, consider the environment where the finished piece will live, and think about how every solid wood component will move. Because wood movement isn't a manufacturing defect. It's a natural property of wood. The real problem is when the design doesn't give the wood enough freedom to move. So before you build your next table, cabinet, door, or solid wood panel, don't just ask how you're going to make it strong. Ask one more question. How is this wood going to move? Understanding that one thing can prevent a huge number of cracks, gaps, and failures in woodworking. And if you've ever had a project crack after you finished building it, tell me what happened in the comments. It might help another woodworker avoid the same mistake. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.